Hello, everyone. This is Jake with a quick little message before the podcast today. So, unfortunately, Charlie made a mistake and only uploaded the audio you're about to hear rather than the episode that was supposed to come out today. So, this is an episode ahead of the one that's supposed to come out today. So, you might hear us reference a previous pitch that I did that was supposed to come out today in this one. But that episode is going to come out next week, not today. So this is a Charlie pitch this week, not your usual Jake pitch. And if you're wondering why I do most of the work for the podcast, it is because of this reason right here. Charlie not uploading his audio, the one thing he has to do. Anyway, thanks for listening to this, and enjoy the episode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the VeryReasonablePilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me as always, my co-host, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I am swell, Charles. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I wrote a pitch this morning, and I'm going to read it to you today.
That's exciting.
I'm not improvising anything. I'm not going to, speak. I'm just reading the page to you. Verbatim.
You're not going to speak?
Spelling mistakes included. I'm not going to, come up with anything off the top of my head.
I feel like
all
this
right,
is a
so
joke.
The Bureau of Informal Investigations. That's the title I had. That's the title I've been working with. I've been thinking about this show a lot because it was a tough nut to crack. I told you this last week. It was a tough nut to crack, but I think I cracked it. So, in the show, Bureau of Informal Investigations, we will follow our two main characters, Stephen Miller and Macy Williams,
Wait, what?
as they travel across America, working for a secret government organization, obviously, where they will investigate all the casual Fridays that happen across the offices in America. What? And they will be investigating to see if people are dressing casually enough on Friday. And if they find out that they're not dressing casually enough, if there's a polo shirt or if there's a tie, people are going to jail.
I don't know if
somebody shows up with loafers on, they're going to jail. That was genuinely the first idea I had, by the way, for this show.
If the audience doesn't know, Stephen Miller is a character in Splatterpunk, right?
Yes.
Maisie Williams is an actress.
She is Arya Stark in Game of Thrones.
I was genuinely scared as you got farther whether or not you were serious or not.
This was my actual idea, was going to be about two fucking office workers figuring out if people dress casually enough on Casual Friday.
Damn.
That was legitimately my first idea. Was what if it's a straightaway comedy about two bumbling idiots and they travel across America checking in on people dressing on Casual Friday, right? And I realized that could be a skit. That could be a short comedy skit, but that is not a TV show. That does not have enough legs to be a TV show. That could be maybe a section of one episode of a TV show, you know? Not even a reoccurring segment. It would just be one thing. So, I started thinking, right? And I was informal investigations could mean a lot of things. Are they investigating informal things? Or are they informally investigating, right? Are the investigations not formally established by the Bureau, right? So, I was thinking about this stuff, and I'm kind of all right, G-Men, fucking X-Files and stuff, you know? But then I was you know what's less interesting? You know what's more interesting than doing the X-Files? Doing the X-Files in space. So that's what we're doing.
Oh.
We're doing, they're the Men in Black. They're the G-Men. They're the guys who show up somewhere and then you're never seen or heard from again, right? Our two main characters, who I'll get to in a minute, are the 1950s idea of these government, secret government employees, you know? Because if you ever read really old school science fiction, or if you look into old school reporting on UFO sightings and stuff, a lot of them will include the Men in Black. And that's where they got the idea for the comic book that they made into that movie with Will Smith and the TV show and stuff, right? But this organization of dudes who dress in all black and they solve problems that the government will not acknowledge are problems, right? And so I'm taking that idea and I'm making it so instead of they drive around to small towns in Wisconsin and like beat people up or kill people so they can't say they got abducted by aliens or whatever, this is, instead of Wisconsin, it's an entire galaxy. And so our two main characters, Zoc and Crank, yes, are these two people working for the Bureau of Informal Investigations, and they travel across the galaxy and they investigate problems that the government knows is happening, right? The collective, that's the name of the government, but cannot acknowledge. And I also think that this would fit pretty neatly into another show that we have that you've done, and I want you to figure out which show.
Is it
as the thing goes on?
A Bureau of Magical Investigations?
No, it is not. Zoc Thomas, a spacefaring G-man with a chip on his shoulder and an absurd hard-on for following the rules.
What?
He talks a big game, but oftentimes relies on his authority to solve most of his problems, right? So he's one of these dudes, he shows up every time he's in the break room, he's talking about, oh, I took down this Larfian, right? Like, it was nothing, right? I was able to find all sorts of, there was a bunch of space chupacabras that were messing up a farm, so I took down their queen and, you know, made sweet love to her, and so then they left the farmers alone, right? All sorts of stuff. But then when he's actually in the field, he's kind of a timid, quiet sort of dude, and he's just like, he doesn't really get into fights or anything like that. He's very slumped-shouldered, oftentimes like with walking, looking down, right? He's got these big fucking Coke bottle glasses on, and he just kind of lets the badge do the talking. The reason he solves these problems is because people are scared of him because of the badge. If he didn't have the badge, he wouldn't solve any of these problems, right? So that's Zoc Thomas. And our second character, Crank Joe, is a young upstart cop who loves her job. She has spent her life dealing in the occult, the alien, the supernatural, and the downright weird part of the galaxy, and she is now getting paid for it. She's tasty in a fight and an encyclopedic knowledge of the universe's cryptozoological wonders. And but she doesn't always do things in the most governmental way possible, you know? Okay. She's not always she's kind of will tell people to go fuck themselves and like throw drinks in people's faces. She won't really always conduct oneself like an agent of the government, of the collective. And so that's kind of where Zoc comes in, and he kind of tempers her more angry, rageful instincts, you know?
Yeah.
So those are our two main characters. And they will be traveling across the galaxy, and I'm thinking like a black Chevrolet, right? Like, this is very much like 1950s sci-fi, you know? In the way that people look, in the way that they talk. The only difference is, instead of it being like just some bodunk redneck farmer, it's some bodunk redneck farmer who is also a green alien man with 6 tentacles, you know? And the, like, all black Chevrolet that they drive around in is also a spaceship, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of taking that sort of fun concept and I'm expounding on it into a universe-wide problem, right? So I have our first episode, Army of One. I've named the episodes. This is the first, I think this is a VRP first, but I named the 4 episodes that I came up before, with. But, have we?
I have. I know I have.
I haven't. So this is a Charles Lung first, if not a Very Reasonable Pilots podcast first.
I bet you have. Definitely.
Maybe I have
song titles before.
Okay, one of these is
a
song
VRP
title.
First for Charles' memory.
Yes, for my memory, haha. Army of One is the title, right? A floating armada arrives outside of Collective Incorporated space. All right, so this massive armada arrives, right? And we're sitting on this planet. It's sort of like a Coruscant-esque world, like very fancy and well-to-do and nice and all this stuff. And then out of nowhere, these like a dozen gigantic ships arrive, and they sit just outside of the planet's gravitational field and just like kind of watch. And everybody's freaking out. Meanwhile, the collective government is denying its existence. And people are like, the fuck are you talking about? It's right there. I can see it. It's up there. And they're like, those reports have been unconfirmed, right? And that's when we meet our heroes, right? They get a call from the chief. The chief is like, listen, you two need to get your asses into gear, all right? We have an unidentified floating armada sitting outside of this planet, right? And people are starting to ask questions, and there's only so many times we can ask them to not believe what they can see. All right, so get up there, figure out what the hell's going on, and get rid of it, okay? And our two main characters are like, fuck, okay, shit. You know, and I imagine they get the call while they're like fucking around in the car, like they're eating donuts or having hot dogs or whatever, right? And they spill ketchup all over themselves. This is a straight-ahead comedy, by the way. Okay. This isn't like an action show. There will be like action sequences, but this is a sitcom first and foremost, you know? So our main characters are obviously like fully comedic. And so they're like, ah, shit, okay. They like get the engine started. Like Zoc is like getting the engine started. He's ready to go. Meanwhile, Crank is like, she's shoveling down the last bite of her donut. She's like, oh, go. Just start the car, right? Like mouthful of stuff, right? They blast off. She spills coffee on herself. He laughs at her. She slaps him upside the head, right? All that stuff. They get to the Armada, and they arrive, and they put out a, hello, this is the Bureau of Informal Affairs. They're not going to be subtle about their job, by the way, even though it's technically a secret. They're just like gonna just tell everyone.
Yeah.
This is the Bureau of Informal Affairs, Special Agent Joe and Thomas. We would like permission to come aboard. Silence. Crackling static. They repeat, this is Special Agent Joe and Thomas. We would like permission to come aboard. Crackling, nothing, silence. All right. They drive forward. The shuttle doors open, and they pull their car in. The shuttle doors close behind them, and they see a whole bunch of soldiers. And all these soldiers are exactly the same height. They're all dressed in these kind of stormtrooper-esque, all black outfits, right? Their faces are all covered. One of them like comes up. He says, you'll come with me. We'll go to the brig, right? And he's like, go to the brig? What the fuck are you talking about? I want to talk to your captain. Oh, okay. He wants to talk to the captain. Everybody else kind of looks around for a second. Then they shake their head and they bring him to the captain, right? And the captain is the exact same looking person, right? Just all in black, the exact same height. And he says, why'd you want to talk to me? What do you mean? You just showed up in the middle of collective incorporated space with these gigantic fucking ships? Oh, we're just waiting for orders. Waiting for orders? Yeah, we're waiting for orders. Isn't he here? Is it who here? Right? And they all take off their helmets, right? Almost in unison. They say, the original. And we find out they are all clones of the exact same guy.
Oh.
It's just the same guy 800 million times. And they're just kind of like these lemmings who are just like, we're waiting for orders. The original was supposed to tell us what to do. And turns out that this is a massive clone army that has just kind of been traveling the galaxy for decades looking for their like original, template clone who will be their commander, right? And so our protagonists are obviously a little bit like baffled by this and annoyed, and so they're just kind of dealing with that. And we kind of, we'll get some good comedic jokes about like there's a women's restroom, but they're all men, and so the women's restroom's like totally just completely gone unused. There's just dust everywhere, shit like that, and eventually Zoc Thomas will have the ingenious idea of taking a DNA sample from this guy because he's a clone. He'll, obviously have the exact same DNA as the original. And they find they plug it into their database, right? And they find the original. And he's just some guy who's like living in an apartment, just working at like a desk job, right? Like he had his DNA stolen without his permission, and got, turned into a gigantic army. And so this guy's just kind of a total loser. Like he's just kind of a wimp, and he's like, what the fuck? And Zoc and Crank show up at his door, and they're like, knock, knock, knock. Sir, you need to come with us. We're officers for the Bureau of Informal Affairs. We need your help with something. Okay, right? And then he's like just kind of shanghaied into this, into the car, and then they drive back up to the spaceship, and then they have to like go through the whole thing again, where they show up and they're like, all right, you're going to the brig. Wait, going to the brig? Yeah, you're going to the brig. That's what happens when people come on the ship. They go to the brig. But we were just here. You're still going to the brig. Take us to the captain, please. Should we take him to the captain? Okay, we'll take you to the captain. They take him to the captain. It's like, we have the original, right? And then this kind of weaselly little dork shows up, and he says, oh, the original. And they all like get on their knees and start bowing down towards him, and he's obviously very uncomfortable. This dude, if this guy lived in our like time, he would be really into Funko Pops. Like, he's not expecting to have like a gigantic armada of like battle-hardened space mercenaries all bowing down to him, and they also all have his face, And so he's kind of like, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, get rid of him. Okay. Your orders are to fly that way. Just that way? Yeah, that way. Just keep flying till you hit something. Yes, sir. Right? And they
that'd be hard in space.
The original and Crank and Zoc get back in the car, and they fly down the ship. The armada leaves, right? And the chief calls them back up, said, I don't know what you two did, but you did a fantastic job. 2 people single-handedly getting rid of an 800 million man army is incredible. And that's when the original starts to like, hey, and that's when Crank hits him in the mouth, and they're like, yeah, thanks, chief. Well, anytime, we're just very good at our jobs. Hang up the phone. They look at the original, and he's like, man. And then they drop him off at his apartment like nothing happened. Credits. As they're sitting back in their Chevrolet eating, their donuts and hot dogs like at the very beginning of the episode. Credits. Post-credits scene. The armada flies directly into a sun. That's the post-credits scene.
Full
is the
power,
armada being like,
full steam ahead.
He said we had to keep going this way till we hit something. Okay. Fly right into the sun. Everyone dies.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. Ground control. That's our second episode. A test pilot for a 1950s fighter jet is screaming across the night sky of Newlanta, right? And that's a planet. And so they're like, our heroes get a call from the chief. There's like, there's a new problem happening in Newlanta. We need you out there. It's kind of difficult to explain, right? So they arrive there in Newlanta, and they're like, what seems to be the problem? They're walking around at daytime, and it's like totally perfectly nice, and there's birds singing, and the grass is green, the sky is blue, and it's gorgeous and everything. It's like, yeah, just wait for it. And like the day passes, and they're having tea, and they're eating lunch, and they're meeting locals and seeing the sights, and they're having a really good time, right, in Newlanta, and they're just enjoying themselves. They're like, I really don't see what the problem is. And as the sky turns black, this just fiery ball of airplane flies across the sky, and you could hear somebody inside of it is just screaming at the top of their lungs, like their voice would go hoarse, and just screaming across the night sky all night, and it's just keeping everyone awake. And they're just like, can you fucking please get rid of this thing, because it's really annoying. This just ship is, and it goes across the entire planet during the night cycle. And they're like, how long has this been happening? It was like, it's like a month. This guy, at first we thought it was like he was gonna crash or something, but this guy just is a fucking drama queen. He won't stop screaming. And so they are like, okay, we'll see what we can do. And they fly the Chevrolet up to him, and they land they land the Chevrolet on top of the fighter jet.
I love that it's a fucking
right?
Chevrolet. You just keep
Yeah,
saying
it's a Chevrolet. And they land on top, and they're like able to cut a hole into the glass large enough for one of them to get in. So Crank Joe gets in, and she's talking to him, and he's like, what's happening? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? I was flying for like I was in New Mexico like 5 minutes ago, and now I'm here. Like 5 minutes ago? You've been doing this for a month. And he's like, what are you talking about? Right? And they're kind of like, this is weird. Very weird, right? And they're able to figure out by doing that same exact thing 2 or 3 nights in a row that this guy's trapped in a time loop. For him, no time is passing at all, right? He's just like, he's flying test pilot for airplanes in New Mexico, then he's flying across the night sky in this crazy alien world, right? And he just keeps repeating that over and over and over again, sort of like a Groundhog Day situation. And so they're able to contact one of the leading temporal scientists in Atlanta, and they are able to construct this machine, right? That should reset his temporal particles. I don't know, a bunch of science words, fucking it doesn't really matter because it's sci-fi mumbo jumbo, right? That will just place him back in the moment immediately after he left. So for him, it will be like no time has passed at all, right? And so they're like, okay, that's fine. So they get the time machine sort of thing situated, and they attach it to the ship, right? And they make their goodbyes, and he's like, who the fuck are you people? And they're like, oh yeah, he doesn't, because he's in a time loop. You know, sort of like a reverse Groundhog Day situation, where instead of one guy remembering everything that's going to happen, it's one guy forgetting what's happened a million times, you know? And so they're like able to get the ship righted, and they're like, all right, sending you back to 1954, New Mexico now, right? And the ship disappears into the night sky. It flies off into the night sky, and the Chevrolet lands, right? And all the townspeople are excited and ecstatic, and they're saying thank you so much, and we love you guys, right? They, spend the rest of the evening partying with these new Atlanteans, right? And hanging out, drinking, and having a good time, talking up birds. You know how it is, right? Then we cut to New Mexico, 1954. We watch an airplane crash into the ground and explode.
Oh.
Because this guy was obviously a terrible fucking test pilot.
Yeah.
Like, he was screaming before he knew what was going on. He was going to die anyway. End of the episode, right? Yeah. Do you have any episode ideas before I keep going? Because I only have 2 more.
I do have a question. I think I know what show you think this is similar or could be in the same universe as. Is it Astronaut Sauce?
Nah, mate. It's Haunt World. Because this is a like dealing with ghosts and paranormal shit that's happening in space. So I was like, Haunt World, you know? Mm-hmm. Maybe we could have a crossover where the Haunt World boys kind of are getting in on the Bureau of Informal Affairs turf, right? And they have to work together, like when Scooby-Doo teams up with Batman.
Haunt World's a TV show, and that one's like an organization, so that could be good. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. One of those Scooby-Doo crossovers, like Scooby-Doo and Batman. So my group would be like the Scooby-Doo, and yours would be Batman, I guess, because it would be somewhat serious. And Haunt World is like literally just a TV show. I think I can't remember the name of the character that's like the producer that's just trying to keep everyone alive. But that person could bond more with your people, but they end up liking the camera guy and stuff like that because they're just like jokesters.
Yeah, the camera guy's fun. Like maybe the producer thinks, oh, now there's gonna be someone else who's serious and like and wants to do this right and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then they're just like throughout the episode continuously deflated by the fact that the Bureau for Informal Affairs agents are obviously fucking idiots, right?
Yeah.
So,
like they're just as bad.
yeah.
So it becomes all ridiculous.
It becomes like the chimpanzees like fucking picking bugs out of each other's fur. It's just morons being morons for each other, you know?
That'd be a fun crossover. I like that.
Yeah. I also had, I have another episode idea. Double Dragon, right? That's the name of the episode. A mythical dragon has robbed the galaxy's largest gold reserve, and our heroes have to investigate it while butting heads with the AFA. Alright? The AFA is the Agency on Formal Activities. So we have the Bureau of Informal Investigations and the Agency on Formal Activities, right? And so it's basically just like this is one of my favorite tropes in fiction, is when you have your main crew of characters and then you have like opposite people who are like them but just slightly different, you know? Like in Shaun of the Dead. If you remember that scene in Shaun of the Dead where we've got our crew of survivors and then they walk by another crew of survivors, which is just them, played by different actors, you know? So Sean is Martin Sheen Martin Sheen is Martin Freeman and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's going to be what the AFA is, right? Is they're just going to have these two kind of normal-ass agents who show up because this is a formal activity. This is a bank robbery. This has been robbed by... This is basically Fort Knox has been broken into and robbed, you know? And so we have to send some formal agents to see this activity and see what's going on with it. But it's been robbed by a dragon who is like a fucking wings, breathes fire, gold horde ass dragon, you know, Smaug and shit, right? And so we're gonna send in our agents from the informal investigations because we cannot formally acknowledge that dragons exist even though they just robbed our fucking our biggest gold reserve, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the main conflict of the episode is just going to be them just like butting heads over, well, I have, you know, authority here and you don't have authority there, like in all this stuff. And our main characters are going to be kind of shown up throughout the show because their bureau doesn't technically exist, and it's like a lot harder for people to respect their authority when you have, you know, somebody. It's hard to be a federal body inspector when the FBI is there, if that makes sense.
I get it. It'd be the joke people when yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they're just butting heads about this the whole time, but eventually they're able to, using both of their skills, using Crank Joe's like encyclopedic knowledge of all things like supernatural and weird, and using the AFA's more robust resources, let's say, they're able to figure out where the dragon is, and it's like deep inside of a cavern, inside of a mountain, right, on this planet. And so they're like, well, that's where dragons congregate. And so our four characters now go down deep into the bowels of this cavern and they find this dragon, right? And at first the AFA agents want to shoot him to death, but Crank Joe is able to talk to the dragon. The dragon's, well, I'll give the gold back. You know, I'll make the sacrifice. I'll give this gold back even though I rightfully earned it. It was just sitting there. You know, nobody was using it, so I just took it for me. But I will give it back, but you have to give me something in return. And Crank Joe is like, what do you want? Entertain me. I wanted a piece of entertainment, right? I would like to watch you two duos fight it out for me. Have a fist fight. I want to be entertained by violence, right? And the AFA agents, like, they put their guns away, right? They're kind of like, we don't really want to fight fellow agents. Is there anything else we can? And before they're able to finish that sentence, fucking Zoc Thomas hits the one in the mouth while Crank Joe, like, kicks the other one in the stomach, right? And they just wail on him on the ground. The AFA agents are just fucking bloodied and beaten, and they're, oh god. And the dragon is just clapping. Yes, that was great. That was fantastic. Awesome. All right, you can have the gold back. That was so much fun to watch you two demolish these lesser warriors. I'm perfectly satisfied with that. And so the four of our four main characters walk out of the mountain. Zoc and Crank are very happy with themselves, and you see them walking with their chests puffed up, and the AFA agents are like, one's like bleeding out, and like one's their eyes swollen shut, and they're like holding on to the other one to walk out, but they've got the gold, and so they're like, I guess, thank you for the help, I guess. And he spits out a tooth. He's like, yeah, thanks for the help, I guess. And the AFA agents walk away, and Crank and Joe Zoc and Crank just sit and they have a sandwich and enjoy their time together. Nice. Just being one, having beaten these two idiots in a fist fight, right? Now, there is a subtle reference in the title. Did you notice it?
I don't remember what the title was.
And the title is Double Dragon, right?
Double Dragon.
Double Dragon. Now, the episode is about a dragon, and it's about two teams of two, but if you know anything about classic arcade video games, Double Dragon was a arcade beat 'em up where you played two brothers, and the game ends with the two brothers who were fighting on the same side fighting each other at the end. So that's where I got the idea for them having to fight. Yeah. Last episode idea is coming to town. It's our Christmas episode because we always have to have a Christmas episode. Our two main characters are flying home in their Chevrolet, right? They're excited for the holidays. They're gonna spend some time with their family. They're gonna, drink eggnog and eat Christmas pudding, and it's gonna be a grand old time, right? And they're talking about their plans, right? Crank is talking about, like, she's gonna spend the whole time with her massive family of hundreds of people, right? And they're all gonna get together and have this huge meal, huge spread, and Zoc is talking about how he's going to hang out with his mother. Because that's his, it's just him and his mom, and they're probably gonna order a pizza, right? But they're both excited, right? Neither of them is like, oh, it's gonna be sad. It's just different. And as they're about to turn off one space highway and go home, they get an emergency distress signal, right? And they're like, what? Help us, but it's spelled HLP us? Help is what? You know what? We'll just go there, right? And so they fly over the ship, and Zoc is like complaining the whole time, but Crank is like, no, they need help, so we're just gonna go help, I guess. It's so annoying, but whatever. We'll help him out, right? Show up, and this is a company ship, right? This is an office ship, basically. So just imagine the office from Scranton if it was a spaceship. And they're throwing the annual Christmas party. So everyone is absolutely obliteratingly drunk. Like, everyone on the ship is super drunk. And they are able to figure out, because the computers on the ship have scanned the ship and found that there's one non-human life form aboard, right? And so all of these drunks realize that one of them has to be a shapeshifter. Like, there's a body snatcher on board, and it's taken the form of one of these people. We can't figure it out amongst ourselves because we're all too drunk. But if we would, the longer we wait, the more people this body snatcher's gonna get, right? Mm-hmm. And so the whole episode is testing out different ways of sifting out this body snatcher. And so we'll do the classic ones from, like, The Thing, right? Where it's like, all right, we're gonna take some of the blood and we're gonna test the blood, and that doesn't work because all these drunks, like, their blood's basically flammable because of how drunk they are right now, you know? And so they're just like, and all of these attempts fail miserably until eventually Crank has the best idea of them all, right? she gets Taco Bell delivered to the company ship, and all of these drunks swarm it like birds with bread, just like attacking the Taco Bell. And she sees one of the guys in the background isn't really partaking, and she shoots him in the head immediately, and he shrivels up and dies because he was the alien. And Zoc is like, how'd you know? It's like, there's one thing on this planet, there's one thing in this galaxy that is for certain, and it's that drunks cannot resist Taco Bell. Look at Tyler. He's been a vegetarian for 3 years. He just housed 2 Crunchwrap Supremes. Drunks love Taco Bell. He wasn't drunk. He was an alien, right? End of the episode. You know, it's a Christmas episode. It's not that high effort. But those are my ideas. Just a very classic straight-ahead comedy, very much a VRP staple. The Bureau of Informal Affairs.
I liked it.
It's fun. I think it's just a very much a fun show. Your show was a lot more well thought out, but last week, I mean, your show was a lot more well thought out than this show.
We did a double recording. That's why he's saying that. Because of course, normally we probably don't remember what we did last week at this point.
Generally speaking, no. And sometimes, you know, I'll show up with a show that's a little bit more thought out. You won't, like, you know, we switch it off.
I like doing like when we switch off between serious and not serious.
Yeah.
Just not to get.
This is not a serious show. It's a fun comedy.
And all the mess. No, I like this show. I love these sort of these traveling space shows where we can set up these kind of fun situations. And this one was very, very exciting. I was wondering where you were to go with Bureau of Informal Investigation. I thought it was going to be contemporary. That was my guess. And like also a joke show, but I didn't know what it was going to be about.
I was thinking about making it a show about fashion.
I assumed there'd be some sort of fantasy or sci-fi element. At no point did I assume it would just be just contemporary.
Yeah.
I would be disappointed if you actually went with that Casual Friday thing you said in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, no, that would be horrible. That'd be a terrible show to do.
Unless.
All right. Unless. Ooh. Episode 300, here we come.
This is where you reveal that was actually your idea and you just came up with everything that you just said off the top of your head because you were scared of my disappointment.
Because I didn't think it was good enough.
I was like, this is a joke, and you're like, oh, fuck, I gotta come up with a whole show. What am I gonna say?
Crack Johnson? What?
Yeah.
I almost named Crank Johnson, and then I realized that name was ridiculous.
Crank's a good name.
Yeah, Crank is good, but Crank Johnson?
Yeah, okay. Well,
I don't think I could get away with that.
That's probably enough for this week of the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me, he's always been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloss. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. And remember, we will be here next week with a brand new televisual series for you to imagine and enjoy. And do you want to know what the title of that show is going to be, Jacob?
I do. I genuinely don't know.
I have 6 titles in front of me.
Oh,
pick a number, 1 through 6.
I'm gonna go with 5.
5? Forgo the sight.
Forgo the sight. All right. That's it.
Now, you can spell sight however you want. I have it written down here as sight as in seeing, but you could also do sight as in like work site or something like that, you know? So, up to you.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm excited. I don't know what it's going to be. No idea. Maybe fantasy. Who knows?
Me neither. Could be. You do love a fantasy show.
I do. You know? I like wizards.
Yeah.
I like knights.
You do like wizards and swords and goblins. They're fun. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and please have a good evening.